All right, hello and welcome to another Expert Inside interview. My name is John Golden from SalesPOP, online sales magazine, and Pipeliner CRM, joining you as usual from San Diego, a bit of a wet San Diego. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Joe Terry, who's just up the coast a little bit in the Bay Area in San Francisco. How you doing, Joe?
Hey, doing great, John. Thank you.
Yeah, Joe is went from being an NFL linebacker to CEO, cultural transformation expert, and 16 time Ironman finisher. Jeez. I'm exhausted just reading that out. Joe offers a compelling story of resilience, leadership, and high performance discipline. And you have a new book coming out in January, Surrender to Lead, and that's what we're going to talk today about is the book Surrender to Lead and the concept. Joe, surrender to lead, that sounds counterintuitive, particularly to the corporate American culture, certainly the one that I grew up in, whatever, where we kind of celebrate go-getters, aggressive, dominating leadership styles. So tell me why. Have those styles ever worked, or is this? Are we undergoing some kind of change?
Yeah, it's a great question, John. And in fact, that's why the subtitle is the counterintuitive approach to driving extraordinary results, right?
Hmm.
Because you think of the word surrender and right away you think of giving up
Yeah.
or letting, you know what I mean? And in this context, and being an athlete my entire life, um, and being in business, mostly sales, well, sales my whole career
Hmm.
before I moved into sales management. And then finally, as a CEO, it's been all about performance, right? And like you would have never thought about surrender. Um, and and in the context of surrender in this approach and what we outline in the book, to give you a high level
Yeah.
of what that means, surrender to lead, the easiest way I can explain it without going through the entire book is, look, you set goals. I've been a goal setter my entire life. Like that has changed my life. Um, in ways I never thought possible. And I continue to set goals, right? And you set those goals. Um, the context of this book is yes, that's important. Performance,
Hmm.
objectives, achievement towards those are critical to set success, especially those of us in sales, right?
Yeah.
And but what we're talking about in this context, and it's very, very important, is yes, that's important, but you need to surrender to that result so that you can focus on the process.
Mm.
If you get too focused on that result, and John, just from your career, the ups and downs of the everyday, every week, every month, if you if you're too focused on the result,
Yeah.
it clouds the judgment that
Hmm.
you're on the right track, adversity is the right track, you know, and you probably remember this as well. When we were growing up in sales, it was always like, I need to get 9 no's in order
Yeah,
to
yeah, get
get
one
that
yes.
yes, right? And getting that yes is about selling X amount of
Mhm,
dollars. And if you're hearing 7, 8 no's, you're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm never gonna hit my
mhm,
quota," if you're too focused on the result.
yeah, and in that way, you also miss out on the lessons that the journey is teaching you.
Yes. Yes, beautiful point. And what's happening with us through that process. So we really talk about what we can control
Mhm,
are our own actions, what we do every day, our mindset every day, how we show up for other people. Because really in sales, It's all about serving the client,
Mhm.
right? You're
Yep.
not gonna be any good in sales if you don't believe what you're selling is so important to serving this client that if they don't buy from you, you're doing them a disservice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And there's so many, unfortunately, one of the issues, and you've probably come across this as you've hired salespeople, and that is that a lot of people unfortunately default into sales. They, it wasn't their first choice career,
Right,
and therefore, maybe they're not that committed to it. Maybe they still think they're going to move on to something else, and oftentimes it's really just getting those people to commit.
right. Yeah, that's a great point too, is not everybody is designed for this work, and of course, you can make a lot of money. It's
Yeah.
not without
Hmm.
it's not without its setbacks. In fact, John, I was just talking to one of our perennial performers. Like this guy
Right.
has sold multi $10 million a year in multiple years, always is number one. And he hit a streak of a lot of no's.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And I had to talk. Here's like one of the best performers I've ever seen in my
Hmm.
career. And I'm having to talk him through that. And that is not for everybody. You know
No.
what I mean?
Yeah. So that concept of control, right? I mean, it's an interesting one, because we tend to fixate on the things that we can't control and overlook the things that we can control. Like you said, we have complete control how we show up. We've complete control over our mindsets, etc. We don't have control over the economy. We don't have control over whether your prospect something happened and now they're distracted, or the company changed direction, they have to do something else. So talk to me a little bit about how you can differentiate between those things you can control and things you can't, and how you can move your focus over to the things you can control and kind of let go of the things you can't.
Yeah. And it's still something I am working on to this day. I never feel like you're a master at that. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And and I also believe if you've been around long enough and read enough books, it's like, oh, here we go again. Control the controllables, control
Mm,
the things you can control, right? And really, what it comes down to, John, is as a leader, or even, I'm going to talk to sales too, because
mhm,
I know sales is part of your group, but as a leader and in sales, the only thing you can control really is the experience you're creating for that other person.
mm.
So,
That's a good point.
so if you think about this for a second, right? Experiences shape what you and I believe. If you go back in your life and you look at over your life, what you believe has been shaped by experiences that you've had from other people or experiences
Mhm.
within your own life, right?
Yep.
And so, as a leader or as a salesperson with a buyer, or as a sales leader in an organization, or a CEO, you're trying to get people belief to be aligned towards a result
Yeah.
and a shift that needs to happen. There's so much going on in our world today, and shifts need to happen. The way you shift those beliefs, and where most people go to, is I need to tell people to do A, B, and
Yeah.
C. I need to do this process. I need to train people to do X, Y, and Z. And they're missing that experience belief layer below the action.
Mm.
And you've got to work on those experiences, which then shape the belief you want that person to hold about you, your product, your solution, whatever that may be, right?
Mhm.
You have to create an experience through storytelling, through
Yeah.
feedback, right? Through how they interact with you. That's what you can control.
Mhm.
And people don't think about that, right? They want to go right to, I got to make 100 cold calls. Yeah, maybe that's action,
Yeah.
right? But you're along that journey, you're creating experiences for people to help
Mhm.
them shape a belief around you or your product or your solution or your company or your leadership, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that process, creating experiences which shape beliefs, then I layer actions onto
Mhm.
that correct belief, and that drives the result.
Yeah, yeah. And if you think about it too, Joe, then you start to look at the no's differently because are they no's or did they give you information that allowed you to, maybe tailor your next call to somebody else? Was it timing? Was it whatever? Did you plant a seed for some time in the future? Did you create enough value on the call on the time that you did spend with the person
Right,
that at least they had a valuable experience, even if they said no? So maybe they refer you later. Who knows? But
right,
it's like looking at those no's as positives rather than negatives.
right. So, yeah, I mean, you just nailed it there as well, right? So it's what's happening in that process and that feedback loop and looking at it from a different perspective,
Mhm.
okay? And here's the other big shift. I'm going to go a little philosophical
Yep,
on
go for it.
you here, John. Here's the biggest shift that I want people to take away if they take away anything. You and I in this universe, in this world, we operate from only two planes. One plane is love, abundance, and gratitude. Okay, that's one
Mhm.
plane. The other plane is ego, fear, and scarcity. And you can't be in both at the same time.
Mhm.
So you just said it for a second, right? You
Yep.
just nailed it. And and you heard no for the third, fourth, fifth time. You can either go to the ego,
Yeah.
fear, scarcity that says, damn, this just isn't working and I don't know what to do. And that's fear-based. Or you can
Mhm.
go to the love, gratitude, and abundance that says, hey, that didn't turn out the way I wanted it, but it turned out exactly how it was supposed to. And it gave me some more information that I can carry forward, just as you said, right?
Yeah.
And so the more we can live on the love, abundance, and gratitude side of the plane and live in that space, the more successful we will be in creating those great experiences to shape beliefs for people on our solution, on our company, on our leadership, on the goals we're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
And that's what it means to surrender to the result. It's like, I'm going to surrender to that and I'm going to operate from a place of love, gratitude, and abundance.
Mhm. And I think that part, Joe, the abundance versus scarcity is so important because if you're on the other side and you're focused on the ego fear, but particularly the scarcity, it means that if you say, Joe, you land a deal and I don't land a deal, you've just taken a deal away from me. If I'm in a scarcity mindset, right? There's less opportunity for me. So now I'm going to focus on fear. I'm going to be like, what's up with my ego? Like, why is Joe getting the deals and I'm not getting the deals? As opposed to if you're an abundant mindset, you're like taking encouragement from Joe landing deals because that means there's deals out there for me and maybe I can learn something for Joe. And that's a completely different mindset to the scarcity one.
Right, right. And And to add on that, John, because you just nailed it. You
Mhm.
just absolutely nailed it. And then, of course, growing up as a kid, uh, always super competitive, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
You didn't know it there, but you could still live in a place of love, abundance, and gratitude, even in a very competitive environment, right? And so, um, uh, when if somebody else gets a deal, that doesn't mean you took it away from me, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
and so how are you going to approach that, right? And if you're that person, John Wooden, this is a little known fact that a lot of people have read about John Wooden
Yeah.
and know his processes. But there was one small quote where a reporter asked John Wooden about the competition, like, "Hey, your competitor, the team coming up this week," and he's like, he went to the extreme. He was like, "I know nothing about my competition. I I I I spend zero time on my competition because I'm all about ensuring that my team is the best that we can be,
Mhm.
and we're going to show up and be the best that we can be and play the best game." And it's the same when you're serving the clients.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter what the competitor's solution is. It's about yours and what value you're bringing with the solution you have. Don't
Mhm.
worry about the competition if you live in the place of love, abundance, gratitude, because
Yeah.
the client smells fear, ego, and scarcity all day long.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the thing that sometimes people, when they're in the moment, they overlook that fact. They think that they're good at hiding it or that they can put on a persona or whatever. But if you're, like you said, if you're coming from a place of fear and ego and scarcity, and you're on a sales call, it comes through immediately. If you can detect it, you can detect that little bit of lack of belief or a little bit of desperation. As good an actor as as you are, it'll still come through.
Yeah. And what's funny, John, is like before this podcast here that we're recording,
Hmm.
I was out for a walk and I was on a call with some people on my management team, and I started getting frustrated about a situation.
Hmm.
And as much as I know about this stuff, I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Why are you getting frustrated? What are you fearing? What are you fearing in this situation? Surrender to it. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I catch, as long as I've been doing this, I catch myself doing it. And the more that we can play the game in that love, abundance, gratitude, and stay in that mindset, you're going to win more deals, you're going to sell
Mhm.
more, release, surrender to the result. You're going to be way more successful over the long run than the fear, ego, scarcity side.
Yeah, yeah. I had a great call a number of years back with somebody who told me when they do their prospecting. So said if I've got to do like 30 calls today, maybe that's what I set myself, and my goal was to set 2 meetings or something like that. He said,
Right.
if I do my 30 call, and if I do that, then I'm going to reward myself when I get home with a movie or something. He said, however, if I don't make the 2 meetings, but I did all the 30 calls and I did everything I could and I feel good about the effort that I put in, then maybe I'll give myself an ice cream. But it's like it's like he had these levels, so you're not going, well, I made my 30 calls and nothing happened, therefore I'm depressed. You say, no, I made 30 good calls, I learned something, I pick it up tomorrow, I'll get the meetings.
Yeah, a great point. And in fact, in 20, I'm looking at my whiteboard here to make sure I get the year right. In 2024, we set what we call key results for our company. That's our
Okay.
process. The results equation is purpose plus strategy plus culture drives results. That's the results equation, right? And we get everybody, that's what we do as a company. We get everybody aligned around those your purpose, your strategy, and your culture to deliver results. So we live our same process. And I put up on my board that we were going to get to a certain booking
Yeah.
target, right? And we got 3 quarters through the year last year, and I'm like, there's no way we're going to hit the target. No
Mm.
way. You know what I mean? And I'm like, okay, I can obsess about this result or
Right.
I can surrender to it because just what you said in that story, like we're doing all the right things. And I don't want my team to think that they're failing,
Yeah.
right? Because this is all part of the process. So I got on my all hands call and I told the team, hey, that objective, we're going to do it as a trailing 12-month objective. And we're going to hit that objective by June of
Mhm.
next year. So
Right.
12 months, June to June, instead of January to December, we're going to hit that objective.
Yeah.
And everybody was like this sigh of relief because we were doing such great work. Like they were controlling what they can control, John, which is the process, like
Mhm.
doing the right things, creating the right experiences, driving the right beliefs, taking the right actions. And it just, the result wasn't coming yet,
Yeah.
right? And sure enough, in June of what are we? We're in November of 20, in
Yeah.
June of 2025, we hit that objective and we celebrated it, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then we moved on and said, okay, we're going to stay focused on how we do business. And it is so important because we can overly obsess on that.
Yeah, and that's a great illustration of the point you made earlier about focusing too much on the result or the goal or the destination, and not looking for, evidence that you're doing the right things, that you're on your way there. Because oftentimes if we focus too much on the result, it looks like it's getting further away, and we're not looking at, are we doing all the right things? We're just obsessing on that target getting small, disappearing into the distance.
Yeah. And I think you ever seen the movie Moneyball?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So there's a great point in that movie where Billy Bean puts the process in,
Mhm.
right? And he's like, trust the process. And they were losing,
Yeah.
right? Big pressure. Think about that. Like
Mhm.
all the media was on him, the ownership, everybody was like, is this players were starting to question it? And he's like, nope, the process, the process, the process. And then all of a sudden they make a turn
Mhm.
and they went on this winning streak where
That's right.
in the movie, I think he turns around on the bridge, on the Bay
Yeah.
Bridge, and heads back to the
Oh, that's right,
stadium.
yeah, 'cause he used to watch the games. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, "Okay, I gotta see this now." Right? It just gave me chills just thinking
Yeah.
about that story, because Billy Bean's a really good friend of mine,
Oh,
and he gave a review of this book, by the way.
oh, he
But
did, nice.
but in that movie, you know, it shows what happens when you trust the process
Mhm.
and don't get overly obsessed on the wins and losses along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, Joe, that's fantastic. Great note to end on. All of Joe's information will be below this video, but before we go, please do remind people about you and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm the CEO of a company called Culture Partners. And what Culture Partners does is we create clarity, alignment, and accountability around your three most important drivers of business, which is your purpose, why your company exists, your strategy on how you're going to execute, and your culture around the shifts your people need to make in order to achieve extraordinary results. And we're the only company that does that, top to bottom, CEO to frontline, clarity, alignment, and accountability around your purpose, your strategy, and your culture to drive extraordinary results.
Oh, fantastic. And like I said, everything will be below here. I encourage you to go check it out. So thanks again, Joe. Thank you for
Yeah,
watching and listening. See you all
Thank you,
again
John.
soon.
I'm grateful to you for having me on. I really appreciate it.